I was listening a bit to the record again last night because I just couldn't listen to it straight after it was made for months.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of re-listening to it a bit, and I was like, oh yes, after like all of this, like lead up, this is the thing that will exist,
Yeah.
you know, and you just kind of forget, you know.
With all the noise around it.
Yeah,
You
with
forget,
all the noise, you just forget that this is the thing that you made, and this is the thing that goes into the world, and you know, the rest of it maybe won't be around in a couple of years.
It's like there's always all this noise around how you market it and you know which platform and I'm like, you know, in the end it's about the thing. It's about the thing.
I forgot I made a record. I did. I forgot because I was like, okay, there's like caption approvals and da-da-da, and people are talking about aspect ratios and da-da-da, and I'm like, okay, you're like, just because of the way that records are rolled out now in terms of a lot of it being put on the artists themselves, you know, and on like their platform and da-da-da, and also being a particularly obsessive person.
Yes.
I think if I was someone I was like, just put anything up out there, I don't need to know. I'm like, no, I need to know. I need like emoji approval.
Yeah.
So I think if I was less obsessive and less perfectionistic, I wouldn't find like the current like way that the rollouts happen as hard. But I just feel like I've never been so aware of like the rollout process itself.
Yeah.
Because everything is like, okay, this is a clip that's going up and we need your approval and we need a caption for this and and I forgot that there was even an album. It's like, oh, there's a record. Okay, that's actually the thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of people who put up all that stuff and there really isn't anything behind it. So at least you have something behind it.
Well, I try and like, I was like, okay, if I'm going to have to use these platforms, I want everything to be world building, everything to be story, everything to be done with complete intention.
Yeah.
I think, and that's the thing, like, I'm really happy to use social platforms if I feel like I can create a story with them, basically. But that takes so much like thought. It's like it takes so much thought and analyzing. And at some point, I just forgot that there was even like an album.
Yeah.
But
what brought you here in the first place, right? As you say on your own album, here you are, your troubled hero, back for season 6.
There's another vague humiliations of fame. And as I'm doing promo at that line, I just think about it all the time. I'm like, the vague humiliations of fame.
Yes.
But yeah, I was going to call the album Season 6.
You were?
Yeah. I was going to call the album Season 6 when it was first, but this was way back, you know, really, it was like the first thing I thought of if I was going to make a 6th album. I was like, oh, I should call it Season 6. And each title should be like as if it was a television series.
Yes.
But then some other stuff happened to me and I was like, okay, some bigger life stuff is happening than just me. Because all you're doing really when you're on tour is like watching television or reading books or whatever. So, and then actually like some big life stuff happened that kind of took me away from this. But I still included it in a song.
Everything gets used somewhere.
Yeah.
Ultimately. I always get this sense when you come back with a record that we're sort of tapping back into this ongoing battle you're having.
I know.
That as your life changes, you look at it from some other perspective. But it's in many ways it's part of the same fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there is this, especially the last 2 records, I think just because of the age I am as well, you know, like the age I am, like what you're going to kind of use your body in service of, like what, what it used to be when you're 20s, 3 years of touring means nothing, you know, and then when you get into your 30s, that's like, okay, it's still taking me like further away from having a family. It's taking me further away from like other things I might want.
Yeah.
So I think the last 2 records have really been wrestling with those questions.
Yes.
And this one just got even more angry. The last one was like a question and like a day, and this one is just a furious scream.
At its heart, what's that anger about?
I think the anger is sort of the sort of like frustration at feeling the limitations of my body, the limitations of time, like the limitations of my industry that is in some ways not really built for me, and honestly like couldn't really imagine something like me, you know, like the lack of support and that I'm having to sacrifice something that potentially like I wish I didn't have to, you know, to keep going, and the fury at that.
Is there a compulsion for you to make a new record? Is it something you have to do? And I know this record is different, but I mean generally.
In general, like once I have the title, I have to make it. It's very like if there's just like a sort of like free floating idea, like season 6, it didn't feel, it was like that was like a fun idea.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel solid. That would have been a kind of concept album about like an album that was like based on like 90s gothic television shows. It would still be kind of a good record, I think, but it wasn't this record. I think when the title Everybody Scream, like that happened with Dance Fever. I didn't think I was going to make a record. The Highest Hope tour ended, and this whole idea and concept for Dance Fever just like arrived. And then as soon as I had the title Everybody Scream, it's like, oh no, like now you've got me. Now I have to make this record because Florence and the Machine, Everybody Scream is such a good title. So it just kind of like, once the idea lands, you are compelled to make it. If it's free, if there's like just free floating things, like I don't feel it. And then as soon as the idea is kind of brought to you, it's almost like
it has some power over you.
It's your duty to make it then at that point.
You've talked about the brutality of ambition.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting phrase.
Yeah, I think especially on a song like One of the Greats, I was thinking about like greatness itself, and I mean what I put my body through, and honestly sometimes my mind through, is brutal at some points to get myself to a level of performance that I'm satisfied with.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I've literally like broken myself upon the stage multiple times.
Yeah.
And there is a sort of shutting off of the human, honestly, to like do what you do. There is a kind of like almost like a violence in like rejecting your own humanity sometimes to just kind of like push yourself forward. Yeah. And again, it's like, you know, I guess if you're choosing, you know, peace of mind or a great song, you're always going to choose a great song. You know, it's like, oh, is this someone's going to be pissed off about that. It's going to hurt someone. Am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. You know, like there is a brutality to it. There is to be in service to the work, you often have to be brutal.
Yes. So what is the conversation in your head like when you get to the point that you know there's an album coming at you and you're wrestling with these choices?
This one was different because I actually like was, I was actually trying to choose a different path. So after Dance Fever, I was like, I think I'm going to try and have a family and take a break. Yeah. And then obviously that went like quite like badly wrong. Yeah. And I had ended up having a near-death experience on stage and like, you know, emergency surgery through, you know, complications with the pregnancy. And then I felt it sort of wasn't like a compulsion. It was more just like, I don't even really remember starting this record. You know, I just went almost straight from that event into the studio as a way of coping, I think, and as a way of trying to piece myself back together. But like, it was different this time, you know, there was an urgency to it. Yeah. And partly because I had someone say to me, like, there is an idea that like you need to fix it by trying again really quickly, you know, by trying again to have a family, that will fix it, that will like heal. Yeah. And they said like the best piece of advice I can give you is don't try again until you feel like yourself. And I think for me, the place that I understand myself in the world and where I could kind of understand what had happened to me was the studio, you know, of going back in. But, you know, it was like, it's a bit foggy the first 6 months of making that record. Yeah. And then at the end of it, I was like, oh my God, I have a record. And now I'm going to have to talk about this. You know, it's like, why have I done this to myself again? Because like, what do you mean? Why am I always making these records about incredibly hard things I don't want to talk about? What's wrong with me?